Hello, this is Leah Whitehorse from Astrology with the cosmic forecast for May 2015. Now we've got a few challenges this month, basically because we've got a Mercury retrograde going on, and also we're going to have a T-square pattern with Mars and Saturn and Neptune. A kind of common thread that's woven into these stories is that we've got a powerful Gemini influence going on. And so this is about what you think and why you think it, and what you say and what you don't say. How do you communicate? How do you talk to others? How do you talk to yourself? So all these issues about communication are going to be raised during this month's planetary proceedings. So we begin with an intense full moon in Scorpio. That's going to be on the 4th of May. And this is also combined on this date with Mercury entering the shadow zone before this upcoming retrograde period. So it's quite an intense day. Now in this full moon chart, Mercury is also going to be opposite to Saturn. So it's challenged. This is about mental blocks. So mental is Mercury and blocks is Saturn. What causes these blocks? Why are they there? What is it you're trying to say but you can't say? Watch for issues raised around this moon, because they might be the things that are needing to be explored when Mercury goes retrograde later in the month. The full moon is square to Jupiter in Leo. So we've got secretive Scorpio up against dramatic, show it all off Leo. Part of you then wants to hide, but the other part of you wants to show yourself. Maybe you're tempted to paste on a smile and try and be all things to everyone, because that's what your audience wants. The moon trines Neptune and sextiles ruler of this lunation, Pluto. So these aspects give a hint that this is about showing who you really are. Pluto is about the truth, and Neptune is about forgiving yourself for those aspects that you don't like, the ones that you want to hide away. Because if you accept those parts of yourself, then you're happier to show who you are and show the truth of you. The co-ruler of this chart is Mars, because Mars is the old ruler of Scorpio. And in this full moon chart, Mars is going to be conjunct minor planet Sedna. Now in mythology, Sedna had a bit of a tragic story. She's a tragic character. Basically, Sedna was married off to a man who on the surface seemed wonderful, very handsome, and he promised to look after her. But when he whisked her away to his home turned out to be this horrible craggy island, and her wonderful husband turned out to be half bird, half man. He was like a monstrous birdman, and he treated her really badly. Sedna's father came to rescue her. He came in his boat, he got her in the boat, and they started to sail away. But Birdman wasn't having any of this. He swooped down and stirred up the seas with his wings. And so the boat was tossing and turning around, and Sedna's father realized that there's no way that the boat could carry both of them. So he decides to throw his daughter overboard. So he throws Sedna overboard, and Sedna's trying to hold on to the boat, but he takes the paddle and he cuts off her fingers. So Sedna sinks to the bottom of the ocean along with her fingers, but as they fall to the bottom of the ocean, they become fish and all manner of sea creatures. And they say that now Sedna sort of rules over this ocean, and if she isn't happy, everybody knows about it. Obviously she's been treated badly, so sometimes she can be quite a vengeful character. The Inuit shamans, when the day's fishing hasn't gone very well, they visualize going down to speak with Sedna and to calm her, to pay respects to her. They comb out her hair and they take out all the little crabs that are tangled in it, and then they braid her hair, and this soothes her. And when she feels soothed and comforted and looked after, she then releases all the fish and the creatures so that the Inuit people can feed themselves. So we have something in this story about learning to know what's good for you and what isn't good for you. It's about recognizing, controlling, and manipulative relationships. And it's also where you play games with yourself because your fears can get the better of you. It's about exploring where you may hold on to resentments. The conjunction to Sedna shows that if you're treated well, you are motivated, that's Mars, to give yourself wholly to another person. You give of yourself. And when you treat yourself well, you're investing in something that's really, really precious. It's about allowing yourself to be seen for who you are, even if you have this metaphorical bad hair day. Because when you're accepted for who you are, that becomes a healing and transformative experience. Mars enters Gemini on the 12th of May. So now we're motivated to pursue information. We need to talk to others. We need to learn. There's a need for mental stimulation. Now, often with Mars in Gemini, there's also a need to be on the move all the time, to always have something to do. It can be quite hard to sit and rest when Mars is in this sign. This need for constant activity, though, can become a bit of a problem because it can scatter your energies and leave you feeling somewhat unfocused. So it can end up that things that you start can end up being left half undone because Mars has already got interested in something else. And the other difficulty with Mars being in Gemini is that sometimes communication can be impatient. There's a little bit of a frustrated edge to the voice. Almost as soon as Mars enters Gemini, he comes up at loggerheads with Saturn because Saturn is over there in the opposite sign of Sagittarius. So we get this opposition between Mars and Saturn, and both are square to Neptune. So this is where we start to get this T-square that I talked about at the beginning, this T-square pattern. And this is going to be strongly in play until the 25th of May. So it covers quite a significant amount of the month. After the 25th of May, it will start to dissipate, but it will take a while for it to dissipate. Mars opposite Saturn can feel like you're blocked or you're stopped. You can't do something or you can't say something. It's very much like driving with the handbrake on. That's a very typical analogy with Mars, Saturn, difficult, challenging oppositions or squares. So it's hard to take action when we've got this challenging aspect going on. And Saturn's square to Neptune is rather like we've got harsh reality, that's Saturn, and then we've got ideals and dreams with Neptune. So harsh reality meets your dreams. Mars square to Neptune may feel defeated because Neptune dissipates energy. It dissolves your motivation. So you can become a little bit lethargic with Mars square to Neptune. Because Mars is in Gemini, I was thinking it may be very important to question what you hear. Think about, do you believe it? Is that the truth? And be very, very wary of gossip, especially with Mercury coming up to being retrograde. Get your facts before you go on the warpath. This T-square is really about breaking down illusions and delusions. It's about holding on to reality, acting with integrity and authority, working on your spirituality actively, practicing compassion. It's about getting the correct information and also holding on to the fact that there is that little spark of magic without losing a grip on reality. Now, the new moon in Taurus on the 18th of May taps into this T-square. Although it's not in aspect to Neptune, the new moon will be widely conjunct Mars and also opposite to Saturn, so it is triggering this pattern that we've got. And Taurus by its nature is quite slow moving. With all this feeling of being blocked going on, I get the sense that it's almost like you're dragging your feet through the mud. The plus point though with this chart is that the ruler Venus is trying to Neptune, so that's a little bit like this positive trine that we had back in the new moon at the beginning of the month. So Neptune is being highlighted in both. So it is perhaps reminding you that there is this spiritual purpose behind everything that's happening, because Neptune spiritualizes what it touches. And Venus trine Neptune is very much about unconditional love. Now, this is also a very creative aspect. Taurus itself is very creative. And so this horrible, murky mud that you're walking through, that's actually clay. And maybe you can turn that clay into something beautiful. You can sculpt it into something beautiful as well as functional. Taurus likes functional things as well as beautiful things. So this is about using what you have, making use of what you have in the here and now, both materially and skills-wise as well. Now, the Sabian symbol for this degree is an old Indian woman selling the artifacts of her tribe to passers-by. So we've got this idea that we've got this elderly lady who is selling these beautiful handmade items created from all the techniques of her tribe and all the things that she's learned from her tribe on how to create these beautiful objects, and she's got all these this wealth of experience. So she is using all of her experience to create something of value, and so the passerby gets to have something that's very beautiful and handmade. And the elderly lady gets the money to buy things that she can't make. So what we've got is an exchange of energy going on between these people. And I think the trick with this new moon is to really focus on what you have right now, especially with this sense of being blocked and I can't get this, or I can't do that, or I can't say this. It's almost saying that if you feel blocked, be in the moment, be here and work with what you have. So this slowdown really hits home as Mercury stations retrograde in Gemini on the 19th of May. Now we've also got the Sun entering into Gemini on the 21st of May. So everything is highly focused on this air sign. Like I said at the beginning, it's how you communicate, how you think, what you know. All of these things are being called into question. Usually when the Sun moves into Gemini, it can be quite a sociable time, but with Mercury ruling this sign and going retrograde, it kind of feels like the sociable side is a little bit more muted than normal. Because this is an air sign and therefore connects to all things that are to do with communication, this would be one of those times when the standard Mercury retrograde warnings apply. So back up your computer and keep hold of your phone, back up your phone, take copies of important documents, send anything important that you have to send by tracked mail or signed for mail. Maybe if you can, wait before you send these important documents, if you possibly can, until after the Mercury retrograde period is over. And also, if you have to sign any documents any kinds of contracts, it's best if you can wait until after this particular Mercury retrograde period. But life doesn't always work like that. So if you have to sign a contract, then just make sure that you have read all of the small print and you really have it imprinted on your mind so that there's not any problems later down the line. It's also a really good time to research buying a new computer or buying a new phone. It's not the time to buy it, but research time is perfect for Mercury retrograde. And especially as Mercury is going to be opposite to Saturn for some of this retrograde period, which is all about narrowing down your options. So if you do the work now to narrow down your options, then it's going to make things much easier when you do decide to make a purchase later down the line. Mercury retrograde in Gemini could show you where you've been holding double standards, or where you hold conflicting opinions. And it's amazing how we do hold conflicting opinions within ourselves, and this can produce a lot of inner tension and stress as we try to sort of argue with ourselves, and sometimes we aren't even aware that we've got these conflicting opinions. So it's a good time to go inwards to look at why you think what you think and why you think it. If you've been feeling a bit fuzzy about a certain situation in your life, this Mercury retrograde could be really good for helping you to gain some clarity. Whilst there are some challenges this month, and maybe there might be some times when you feel like everything is just moving far too slowly, it will give you time to contemplate, and that's really important whilst we've got this Mercury retrograde period. Some really good ways of using this energy, bearing in mind that it's air energy. You could do things like journaling your feelings and getting out all of those words that you want to say and putting it down on paper so you can actually read it. It might be a good thing to perhaps write a letter to somebody, not to send it, but just to write out how you feel. If you've had a conflict with somebody, I mean, it could even be somebody from the distant past. It could even be somebody who's now passed away. But write a letter to them to get out all of those things that you would like to say. And it's about not being afraid of what it is, because sometimes it's very easy to swallow those words that kind of taste bad to us. In your journal, in your letter, it's okay to swear. It's okay to say really bad things, because sometimes we have to acknowledge that we've got all of those difficult feelings that we don't like and seem distasteful to us. You have to kind of get them out first before you can work through them, and then you can let them go. So it's really good for this kind of work. It's also, Gemini also rules the lungs. So simply getting out into the fresh air, deep breaths, being conscious of your breath. Again, it's about being mindful, mindfulness meditation, or mindfulness walking, so that you're just very conscious of being here and conscious of your breathing. Breath is life. So this is another good way of using Mercury retrograde energy. You could also do a sponsored silence, or if you're up for it, you could go on a Facebook fast or a social media fast. There's lots of positive ways to use a retrograde period, so it's not something to dread. So this month I decided to use the Mythic deck, and almost immediately I had this feeling I want to also use my Shaman wisdom cards, which I've done once before on these videos. So I decided to just go with the flow and see what happened. And the first card that came out was the Ace of Swords. And I didn't even get a chance to shuffle the cards. The card literally just threw itself out of the pack almost the second I picked them up. So the Ace of Swords it is. And it's it's the perfect card for the month in many ways, because the Ace of Swords is the first of the suit of swords, being the ace, and the swords are air, the element of air in the tarot. So it absolutely works with this emphasis on Gemini and Mercury retrograde through Gemini. This particular deck, we've got Pallas Athena, who was very much a warrior, but she didn't like to fight. She thought negotiation was much better. So she was fully able to defend herself if necessary, but she was extremely good mentally. In astrology, Pallas is kind of linked with pattern recognition. So she recognized the patterns of thought, patterns of speech, patterns of ways of being. So when I see this card, I noticed that she has all this space around her. So we've got this idea again with air. There's a need for space. There's a need for clarity. Look where her the tip of her sword is right up there in the blue sky. It's gone above these clouds. So there's a need for clarity. When I get this card in reading, I often find that it's someone who's just made a decision and are just about to act on it. It's like the sword has been given to them to go off on a quest, and they're seeing things clearly now. The mountains perhaps represent problems, so perhaps these have receded, problems are receding. Or maybe it's that you just need to get some distance on these problems that seem so big. This is another way of looking at it. With essentially very much with this card, we have the idea of gaining clarity, mental space. So I then picked another card from the Shaman Wisdom deck, and funnily enough, it was what I call the blank card. It's not actually blank, it's just the card of self. So what we've got here is we need a clarity of self. That's all it's saying. We need clarity of self. And then, so I picked one more, seeing as that was quite short and sweet. And we get what is in many ways a very stark message. Stark is very much an Ace of Swords word. And the stark message is that we get Sweetgrass. And Sweetgrass is used for cleansing. It's used for smudging, to cleanse the aura of a person, or cleanse a space, or cleanse an object. And incense, which the Sweetgrass is used for, is what you use in ritual to symbolize the element of air. So we've definitely got a bit of a theme going on here. It's about mental clarity, cleansing of self, clearing the air inside and out. So the fact that we've got these three cards, I was thinking another way of kind of honoring this Mercury retrograde period, rather than freaking out and worrying about it, is you could do a cleansing of your home, a smudging of your home. If you like incense, then you could use just an incense stick, or you could buy a smudging set of sage or sweetgrass, or maybe make one with lavender. If incense isn't your thing, simply open the windows, get the air into the house. You could also, if your neighbours don't mind, you could drum around the house, or you could clap. That's another way of doing it. It's getting the air moving. You could sing it. You could sing something happy, and deliberately sing to every wall, every window, every doorway. It sounds a bit strange, but it's to get the energy moving and to clear the energy. So there is a lot about cleansing. So it's about getting rid of your negative thinking, clarify your thoughts.